Good deal. We're ready to go. Before we get started, I will tell you that we have one change in the agenda that got sent out, and that is that, oh, good, Neil's coming. I've added Deb Elsner to our agenda, and I'm going to have her speak first, just because I think she's got something really interesting that may take a little bit of time to talk about. So that's the only change. Let's very quickly at this point go around. I'm Karen Sheik. I'm past president of the State League. I'm still on the board. I live in Cortez, Colorado, which is in southwest Colorado, 50 miles from Durango. Jeff, take it away.
Oh, I'm Jeff Withers. I'm a member of the Denver League, and I don't know. I'm on the local government committee for the Legislative Action Committee, and or the unit, whatever we call ourselves. It's not a committee, I guess. I'm new to the league. I'm coming up on my first anniversary, I guess, in about 2 or 3 months. So I'm that new, I guess. It's nice to be here.
Thanks. We're glad you could make it this time. Gaithia?
Yeah, I'm Gaithia Weiss, and I'm in Boulder County, Longmont. And along with Neil McDermott, I'm active in voting methods and election security. And election security is what we do with this committee.
Thanks, Gaithia. Hey, Fair.
Yes, I'm Fair Russick, and I also am on the local government committee. And I think Karen wanted me to speak today at some time about, you have all been kind enough to sponsor me for trying to get on the governor's task force for metro districts. So I'll address that when the time is right.
Great.
And I've only been in the league maybe, let's see, 1.5 years, I think.
You're jumping in with both feet. That's great.
Yeah.
Deb.
I am Deb Elsner from Park County. Our league was just formed this last spring, so we're pretty new, but we have a big issue about election stuff, so that's why I'm here.
And I have to say that the Park County League really hit the ground running. They got started right away. They have members. We were often accused of being a little left-leaning, but the Park County League has members from both the Republican and the Democratic Party, and they have been very, very active. I've been most impressed with what they've done these past few months and with their leadership. So we're so glad that Deb's here today. Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Patterson. I just moved here from Wisconsin. I've been a member for about 6 months now. I did a lot of work in elections in Wisconsin, and I'm kind of sort of helping the team transition without me this year. So, and then my question I have is, how do I get to, and you don't have to answer this now, but I want to work the polls. How do I get into the polls to be a poll worker of some sort? If someone at some point can share that with me. I just got my driver's license and I'm now registered to vote. So I'm really excited.
Great. Talk to your county clerk.
Yeah, I'm a judge in Denver. I can put it in the chat, just what you need to do.
Okay, I'm in Douglas County and I've looked on the websites. I signed up. It just didn't seem like it was working. Yeah. So I'll, if you put it in the chat, I'll look at it again and redo it.
All right, thanks. Maud.
Hi, I'm Maud Nerol. I'm along with Jennifer, a member of the Arapahoe Douglas Local League. And on that management team, I'm also co-chair for action and advocacy at the state level. And so I'm happy to see a number of people who are active in the State Legislative Action Committee in this group.
Todd and Kathy have done a great job. They've increased the membership and they've been really busy this year.
Actually, Karen and Beth did the recruiting. Thank you. You folks got us.
Yeah, but you did the training and that was the hard part. So yeah. Diane.
Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Johnson. I'm with the Pueblo League. We're about 100 miles south of Denver. And I'm on the leadership team, and we have just lost our fearless leader who has been the face and the voice of the League of Women Voters in Pueblo for several years now. So the rest of us are sort of figuring out just what the next direction will be for our league in the next chapter. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. We really want to hit the ground running with the elections this year. So that would be my interest.
Great, thanks. Nice to see you, Diane.
It's nice
Sandra.
of you.
Yeah. Sandra? And you're on mute.
Hi, I'm Sandra Collins. I'm the membership chair for the, well, largely Colorado Springs, but the Pikes Peak region. And I also work with fundraising. We are building our teams and building our membership. So we've been quite active this past year, past 2 years. And we have a lot planned, and I thought I'd jump in and see what the state's doing.
Great, glad you're here. Christina?
I'm Christina Manthe. I'm the president of the Jeffco League, but I actually live in Douglas County. And I am co-chairing the subgroup of this committee that deals with special districts.
Thank you, Christina. Neil, I'm glad you could make it.
Well, I'm glad that my other meeting finished early enough. So I'm Neil McBurnett. I got to visit Karen in Southwest Colorado a few weeks ago. I was out there for the Colorado County Clerks Association meeting, which had a wealth of, insights and impressive things going on. So that was great. I've been involved in voting election integrity for several decades and introduced risk limiting audits to Colorado. Helped Maud and Karen and Gaithia and many more folks get a position on election security for the State League. And I also work a lot with voting methods, which I think are actually critical to integrity, because you want to elect the people that the voters actually want, not just what some obsolete old method like the one we use now gives you. I'm on the Secretary of State's Bipartisan Election Advisory Commission just recently as a league representative. And I'm also very recently on the Wikimedia Foundation Elections Committee. So the group that runs Wikipedia and Wikimedia and hundreds of them around the world. Little shout out to Park County. I was just driving through there also recently and know folks involved in that. So yay to that. And to Jennifer, besides showing up at polls, show up at the audit and see if you think it does everything it needs to do.
Where's the audit? Is there one going on now?
There's an audit usually on the Friday or Saturday, a week and a half after the election. Sometimes on the Monday, it depends on when they schedule it. But it is your opportunity to actually see that the tallying worked right.
Sure.
Because I'm a computer scientist and I'm the first to tell you that you can't trust computers. You need to
They only do what people tell them to do, right?
Exactly. It's not complicated. It's not political. You just need to check what they do.
Yeah.
Well, and you're not necessarily required to be a computer whiz, but there's a lot to be observed in how attentive, how bipartisan and non-sloppy they look about how they handle the boxes of ballots and things like that.
Yeah, we have a different wording for that after our election, but I know I will do that. I'll look into that. Thank you.
Jennifer, if you will send me your email, I will send you a link to the white paper that was written a year or so ago about Colorado's election system. And that tells you exactly how it works with all of the checks and balances and security that's built into it, so that
Karen, I'll just put that link in the chat.
Thank you. I've tried to go through some of the statutes for voting as well. If any of you have any special links to any of that stuff, I'm really into that as well.
Right.
Statutes.
if you all want to, we've got such a wonderful turnout today. If you would all be willing to put your email into, I have some of yours, and if you know that I have yours, you don't have to, well, put it in so that we all have it. It might be helpful then as we begin to really ramp up with this upcoming election year to have a way to be able to get in touch with one another other than during a meeting time. And I can then, if you give me, if it's okay, then I can consolidate all of that and just share it with the group so that we can have some additional conversations, if that's okay.
You know, it would be also helpful if you did it in like a Google Docs format so that as we add people,
Sure.
we'd have, it'd be easier to keep it updated. If you don't, can you do that?
I'm sure I probably can.
Okay, cool.
Okay, no. All right. Well, thanks again. Oh, Celeste, I'm sorry, I forgot you. Celeste, could you introduce yourself? And you're on mute.
I'm Celeste Landry and I live in the city of Boulder in Boulder County. And I actually am the leader facilitator of the Alternative Voting Methods Task Force. So I care a lot about elections. And I'm also on LAC as a lobbyist, and I'm a co-leader of the Boulder County voting methods team. Nice to see so many people here.
Yes, thanks. Celeste is very busy. All right, Deb.
Karen?
Yes.
One question, were you asking about the Colorado's innovative and stellar election system? Is that what you were going to send to Jennifer?
That's what I was going to send.
Okay.
And if some of the rest of you have not had a chance to look at it, I will tell you that it's a continual work in progress, because legislation, is changed and the system is improved. Why, obviously, things get different over time, but it's a really good basic document that will allow you to see how our system really evolved, because at one time we had a really poor election system. And now we've got one that's considered by many to be the gold standard in the United States. So,
and how do we access that?
Celeste is going to, is that correct, Celeste? You'll put a link in the chat for everybody? Yes, she's
Oh,
already.
here it is. Okay.
So
I
you
see it.
click on
Okay.
that. So it's just a really good way to get a quick education on all of the intricacies that are involved in ensuring that an election does what it's supposed to do. And the thing that's quite interesting is that so many states after 2020, so many state legislators, rushed to improve their election systems, and actually all they really did was make it harder for people who should have the right to vote to be able to do that. Whereas Colorado has made it easy for people to vote and is continually tweaking. People like Neil and Gathia and other league members who are working on improving legislation in this area are constantly looking for ways, along with our local county clerks, to make sure that our election system continues to be a gold standard and get better and better and easier to be able to use. So anyway, all right, Deb, the floor is now yours. If you want to start by just giving us a really brief background of what's happened and why Park County is concerned about the issue that you're going to share.
Okay, sure, thanks. When we have a Tabor issue that goes on the county ballot, it's a county issue. The clerk sends out what we call the white book. And in the very beginning of that, it says that they don't warrant the accuracy or the truth of any statement made in the summary. Okay, so with the blue book, there's a whole process, and they have a committee that looks at the pros and cons and comes up with, yes, they're truthful and accurate, or no, they're not, you need to change this or whatever. But there is no process for the counties to do that. And our clerk does not feel real comfortable making changes to people's things, you know, she's not confident in, well, are they truthful or not? But what we've found over the last several election cycles, we have an extreme right group in our county that are putting together the cons for every tax issue that comes onto the ballot. And this last November, our league took up the cause of our ballot issue 1A because it was a sheriff's safety initiative. Okay, it was very clear that the monies from the sheriff's safety initiative had to be spent on the sheriff's budget. So there was, you know, there was nothing questionable about that. But in the con statement, this guy who's been writing these con statements for 25 years probably said that it's that Park County doesn't have a lack of money, it's a lack of management. And they said that the sheriff returned $400,000 that he didn't use. So that could have been leveraged to hire deputies. Right now we have deputies only on duty from 9 in the morning to 9 at night. We do not have any coverage from 9 at night to 9 in the morning. Why? We can't hire deputies because we can't pay them enough. We're about $20,000 less than the surrounding counties per year. So that was one of the things he said. He also said that there are no hiring goals, so nothing will change. I mean, it was just filled with, he called the BOCC incompetent, that's why the money hasn't been there. And, you know, there were not any real statements of fact in that one. We also had another 1B, which was would have allowed us to collect a sales tax for our short-term rentals. And part of that money would have been used for law enforcement, roads. We found with our short-term rentals, there's about a 25% increase in what our emergency services provide because of the short-term rentals. And he made the statement in there that the STR owners would be the ones to pay that. Well, it was a sales tax. It was not a property tax. It was a sales tax on people, mostly tourists, that would come up and stay at our rentals. So it had nothing to do with the owner. They would still get their money. The state would collect the sales tax. And then also they wrote one, it was one different person, but she wrote a statement against the school district ballot initiative with charges of open meeting law violations. And let me look real quick. What was the other one? I'm not real familiar with that one. Oh, that they failed to read the language, the ballot language, into the public record. That was one of their cons. So our concern is, how do we set up a way for counties to be able to verify the accuracy of both pros and cons, and make sure that, because this mailing goes out to every single registered voter in the county. Our committee put in a grant that League of Women Voters did, and we also had an issue committee for that ballot issue 1A. And we were not able to send more than 2,000 flyers out to people. So we couldn't educate people that what they read in the white book was not necessarily what was true. So that's our concern, is how do we fix this?
Can you point to the white book, or is it online, or can you share it just to get a sense for the issues?
I have.
Yeah, we have the same thing in Boulder County. It's called the Tabor Notice, and it should be on the county clerk's website.
It is, yeah, it is on the county clerk's website. I can send that to Karen, and then maybe she could forward it to you.
I can do that.
Okay, I will do that. So our idea is maybe there should be a committee in the counties like there is for the state, where we have, you know, maybe a Democrat, a Republican, an unaffiliated, maybe a league representative, and they look at those pros and cons and figure out what's true, what's not, and then forward it on to the county clerk for her then to approve or not. When the county clerk talked to the Secretary of State, they said that the state is very silent on this, on what counties can do. And so they suggested, well, if you think something is not accurate, you should send it to your attorney. Well, our attorney charges $250 an hour, and we're a very small county, and we have not debruced, so we are ratcheting every year less and less money. So to have our attorney, who really probably isn't any more familiar with the ballot initiatives than we are, you know, I'm not sure that would be a good idea. So anyway, there it is.
Christina.
Deb, Jeffco got somewhat similar problems last year too. So, and I don't know what the solution is. Does anybody actually know what the law says regarding what the county can and can't do on these booklets? That would be question one. And then the other question I had for you, Deb, is just as an idea, do you guys have a local newspaper in Park County?
Well, there's a question. We have up until the editor was fired yesterday and the new publisher took over in April. So there's no new editor. So we're not sure if we're going to still have it, but it's a very limited subscription. And most of the people that, at least the last time I checked, were not full-time residents in Park County that have the newspaper. So yeah.
How's your next door access?
We do have Nextdoor, and we did use Nextdoor. We used Facebook. We tried all the social media to get the word out. We had some forums. We had, during the town hall meetings, we had one candidate who was opposed to the ballot, all of them, and then one candidate who was supportive. So we kind of got the pros and cons there, but you know, you only have, I mean, we had a full house, but it was still only 100 people out of 9,000 that vote. So.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
The last.
So I know a little bit about the process. I know that the counties have to accept comments through some deadline, which is pretty early. And they don't, at least in Boulder County, they don't advertise that deadline very much, very well. So some shadow group that is active can, in fact, you know, get whatever they want printed, basically. And I think that one of the reasons they don't advertise it is because they don't want crazy things printed. They know that the people who are in favor of the initiative will put in a statement because they're very aware of the process, and people who are opposed will not, you know, won't know about it. So one thing every league could do is advertise that the county clerk is accepting pro and con statements. And just as we collect pro and con statements for ballot issues, and I think we also don't vet them per se. We're not required to vet them. I think we might pick and choose the ones we think are the most accurate and not put something that's blatantly false in there. But we also have a statement, at least in Boulder County, that we do not, you know, these are statements, we have not verified them or confirmed them. So those are a couple thoughts of things that the league can do. And if it becomes very public that this is a public process, it may be more evident that, oh, these are not necessarily true. This is the world of artificial intelligence and social media. And so we have to be aware of all that.
At the state level, we're also concerned on our ballot measure pamphlets that we may have been copying from supporters or opponents' websites where copying things that are not necessarily truthful, and we are revising what we're going to do and how we're going to do that, and LIC members will be more involved. So something for us to, on LIC, on the Legislative Action Committee, to look forward to, but using our expertise. Those are all good suggestions. What I'm not hearing is a counterpoint when some other entity has submitted some really false statement. A way of having a counteraction. And the only thing I can think of is if there is some idea of what that group will say, and to put that into the comments.
Maud, one of the things we ran into was that we didn't find out what they were putting in until the book actually issued.
Right.
And
Yeah.
And we would have made our statement much stronger if we had known what was coming, but.
And the other issue is if there's more than one person that puts in cons or pros, who puts it together? Right now it's the clerk, and they don't feel confident. Our clerk is new, so she doesn't feel confident taking 2 or 3 different con statements or pro statements and trying to mesh them together to come up with one 500-word statement. So that would be the other concern that we have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's too bad you didn't hitch a ride to the County Clerks Association conference with Neil as he went through Park County earlier, because that's where you can find some help. I think if your clerk is familiar with the clerks in the neighboring counties, then she should get, or I think you said she should get in touch with them, or the president, current chair or president, I think they call him, of the County Clerks Association. And because this is a problem that all the clerks have. The Legislative Council publishes the State Blue Book. And so they have their staff go through this stuff. And I don't think there are any statutory requirements or powers that are given to clerks to be able to do this, but clearly disseminating information that is sketchy or perhaps false is not in anybody's best interest and cannot be serving a public purpose. So I think there should be maybe something that directs the county clerks to be able to do this, but that's a matter for the legislature to take up. So that's just an idea, a couple of ideas of people that she could get help from right away to see what other counties are doing. That's all.
Well, she did. Yeah, she has reached out to them, and they have said the same thing, that they, do feel that there's an issue and they're not sure, should it be covered in the rules or should it be actually a legislative issue? And that's where I guess.
Do you mean the Secretary of State's rules?
Right. The Secretary of State said they don't have any, right now, there is nothing that governs the counties. Yeah.
Then if the Secretary of State says they don't have the power to put it in their rules, then the legislature can fix that.
Well, they didn't say they don't have the power. They said they don't currently have anything. It's silent right now. So they didn't actually say they couldn't do it.
Well, it may be a good idea I'll let me look into it and see. I know some clerks and I'll talk to them.
Okay.
See what they do and how they do it. And if it's a legislative fix, then somebody ought to go to their legislator and say that a bill ought to be introduced next session and let people right this wrong, I think. But that's right. What I think. I don't know.
And I have spoken with Julie McCluskey, who is our HD 13 rep plus speaker of the House. And so she has said, she has said she would look into it, but that's where then she got into the legislative session, and that was that. So
well, that's good. I can let me look into it and I'll see if I can come up with anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I didn't know the HD 13 rep was always the Speaker of the House, because back when Casey Becker was HD 13 rep, she was Speaker of the House too.
Really? Wow, okay.
But they've changed, they've redone the numbers.
That's the lucky number.
I've been a little disappointed with the legislators when I'm working on a bill as a lobbyist and I point out something that needs fixing in the bill that isn't correct, basically, or there's some conflict or whatever. And sometimes they'll change it, but sometimes they say, nope, we don't want to change anything. The bill will pass. If I touch it, I'm afraid it won't pass. And so I'm a little disappointed in that. That's not the main point of what I want to say right now, but I did need to vent. Thank you very much for listening. The main thing I wanted to say was, in terms of counterpoint, what they do with the statewide Blue Book is the nonpartisan staff writes up something, and then they let the interested parties look at it and comment. Maybe what needs to happen is the county clerks need to take in the comments and then send them out to the interested parties and not allow them to make any new arguments, but they can do a counter argument to something there, or they can, take something out if they want to. And that would be a big win for transparency. And it wouldn't put anything on the county clerks except passing papers back and forth. And it would allow all the sides to know what the arguments are. So it would be modeled after the Blue Book situation. So maybe that's a good model.
Neil?
I like that, Celeste. I put in the chat an article that I just read to try to figure out what's going on here. And one of the things that the article points out is that I guess there is not even a requirement that there be some sort of a disclaimer that says, how the process worked, and gosh, we didn't fact check everything. And it sounds like that does happen in Park County. So I especially love to see how it's worded there. I mean, that would seem like the very easiest step to take, which is to say, this is just one set of information, and you're gonna, you should be looking elsewhere for information. But I'd love to know more about the Blue Book process. I'm sure that adding any amount of process is something that that some clerks will be disheartened by because they're working so hard already. But they do have a new source of funding. 45%, I think, of their expenses at some point down the line, not this next election or two, but they will have state support for some of their expenses. And it's, for a long time, it's been a terrible problem, especially in rural counties where they really had a lot of work to do, more work each year, and had to fund it all themselves. So maybe something like that Blue Book approach would work also. So I'm really curious about that. And it addresses some of the concerns in the article, which are, I think it would be hard to have, like a committee assess the truth, because that's just a famously difficult thing to do. But allowing people to respond in a way that doesn't go on forever and ever. I'd like to know more about the Blue Book thing. Thank you for bringing it all up.
Sure.
Mike?
If there's not Secretary of State rule on this, then I would think a county clerk could decide to do this on her own, because there's not a rule that says she can't.
I think it's a manpower and a financial issue, is the impression I'm getting.
And maybe the league could volunteer as a nonpartisan organization, except if the local league has taken a stance on that issue, they may not be seen as neutral.
I don't think.
Deb? Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, that was my concern. That's why I thought maybe we could do, a committee that when the pros and cons were sent in, then there would be a small committee that would go through them and kind of put together, if there's more than one pro or con, kind of help the clerk and then send it back to the clerk because she is the final authority. So let her then look at it. And if she had a question about what was sent back to her, then she could run it by our attorney. But I know at the state level, my husband was just involved in the Blue Book thing, and what all the attorneys are there, and one attorney plus some stakeholders got together, and this happened to be for Prop HH, and they went through and came up with some pros and cons and talked about it, and then it goes back then to the Legislative Council, and they're the ones then that look at it and decide, yes, these are all legal or not, or whatever. So that, that was how it works. So I thought maybe at the county level, we could figure out a way to be able to do that too. So.
I did contact Andrea Wilkins, who is our LWBCO lobbyist, and unfortunately she had a conflicting meeting and wasn't able to attend, but she is going to, because this meeting is being recorded, she has promised that she will go back and look at it. She suggested several things. She said the first thing that we might want to do, and Deb, if you would like to take the lead on this, and then if there are other members of this group that are present this afternoon that would like to work with her, one of the first steps that she suggested was to reach out to other clerks in other counties or other local leagues to find out how widespread this situation is. Is this something that's restricted to just one or two counties where it's become an issue, or is this something that has broader ramifications? So that might be the first step that you would want to take to find out, is this just isolated, or is this something that really needs to be looked at because it's impacting on a grander level. Something else then that she also tied, and she did mention, as Neil did, that the county clerks will be getting some additional funding, but unfortunately, a lot of that probably is already earmarked. They were underfunded to begin with. And so I imagine a lot of that funding will go to kind of catching up and taking care of some of the things that they were able to identify.
The funding is a percentage of their qualifying expenses. So if they decided to do this, the state would pay nearly half. And if it was determined to be a qualifying expense.
Yes. So, that may ease some of the financial burdens at the county clerk level. But another thing that we could possibly do too is that we have Vote 411, and that might be a vehicle that could be used in order to provide additional information that is more fairly vetted than maybe some of the information that's presented by those that simply support a particular perspective. Take advantage of using that and providing more detailed information than maybe what is being provided at this point. But long story short, she suggested that you start with reaching out to other leagues around the state, and she did send me some contact information, which I will send to you, including the contact information for, I think both for the policy, a person who's in charge of policy, and the president of the County Clerks Association. So that might be a good place to start as well. So are there, if there are some of you that are here today that are kind of intrigued with this, and I know Jeff has offered to provide some information and support. If there's anybody else, if you'll put your name in the chat and make sure that your contact information is there so that Deb has that, then Deb, would you take the lead on following up on that?
Okay, I can do that. So you want in writing, because we did talk with the clerks. Mel, when she was at one of the clerk association meetings, did speak with several of them, and they all said it was an issue. With,
Okay.
yeah, so I know it's there, so.
Yeah, if
Mhm.
if you could put something in writing, and then we can, we can get that forwarded to Andrea, because she said that if this is something that is widespread and obviously is resulting maybe in people not getting the kind of information they need in order to make an informed choice, that as Jeff mentioned, maybe the remedy is to take it to the legislature and have them put something in place at the local level that is a reflection of what happens with the Blue Book at the state level.
Mhm.
Because I think what happens is that even though there may be a disclaimer that, these are opinions, people get something that's printed on a piece of paper, and either that doesn't register with them, or for whatever reason, it's, we look at it and we think that it was printed, it must be true. And so
It's coming from the clerk's office, and whether or not they say, it says it does not warrant the accuracy or truth of any statement made in the summaries, nor is it responsible for errors in spelling, grammar, or punctuation, or submitted statements. Well, okay, so then you look at it and you say, okay, well, this went out to every voter, so from the clerk, it must be true. So yeah, okay.
exactly. So it's you can say all you want,
Yeah,
claiming it, but the truth is, if that message doesn't hit home, then it doesn't make any difference. So
right.
all right, well, people are beginning to put some things in the chat. So thank you so much, Deb, for continuing to pursue this, and for coming today and making your case.
You're welcome, and thanks for letting me share this, because it's
Oh.
very frustrating.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are there any other comments that anybody wants to make on this particular issue? Okay. Faye, Fair, Fair, would you please briefly just talk a little bit about the task force that you've been assigned to, and share some
I
additional.
haven't been assigned yet. I've just.
That's right.
applied.
You've just been nominated. So, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, in addition to being a member of the league, I'm also a member of an ad hoc group called Coloradans for Metro District Reform, and which is a growing organization as more and more people that live in metro districts become frustrated with their tax situation. There was a bill passed. This other group I'm in, we have tried for the last 3 sessions to get some meaningful reform done, but we're always outgunned by the developer lobbyists. And so we have succeeded in doing a couple of things, but because of some frustration of a couple of the members of the House of Representatives, Jennifer Parenti and Representative Chatone, they wrote a bill this last session to have a task force for metro districts as well as HOAs. And they're 2 different animals, and unfortunately, many people don't understand that. HOAs are private associations, metro districts are government. They are a small local government. So anyway, the bill did not pass the way they wished it to. The governor got involved, and he, before he would sign it, he had some requirements. So they've come up with 2 different application processes. One being from the House of Representatives and the Speaker of the House. They have a list of people they're looking for that I think will supposedly represent the taxpayer side, although, and I'll just read on that committee, they're looking for 2 homeowners residing in a metro district, The next one is an elected city council member as recommended by a statewide organization that represents municipalities. A licensed Colorado attorney who primarily represents homeowners in legal proceedings against metro districts, and a representative of a nonprofit organization. Now, hopefully, out of that group, we'll get at least 2 people. We know only of one attorney that has applied that has represented metro districts. And but the homeowner thing could go either way. There are some homeowners that may be pro developer, depending on who's making the decisions. And as a nonprofit organization, most of them probably don't know much about metro districts. As far as the governor's task force, it was pretty much skewed to be pro-developer, in my humble opinion. They're looking for a licensed attorney specializing in metro district law. So it'll be somebody that writes all these service plans for metro districts, an elected county commissioner. Now, unfortunately, most of the commissioners and city council members just sign off on these when they're presented to them. And the belief in the myth that the only way development can be done in the state is through a metro district is always on the front burner. And a representative of a developer. And then the last representative is, I think I know who they have in mind for this position, but I applied for it anyway. And it says a representative recommended by a statewide nonprofit organization that represents Metro District Education in a coalition. And now that we have done 3 trainings within the league for league members and other interested parties, we felt like we could qualify under that that umbrella. So I did apply. I fortunately was I was interviewed by Marsha Waters, who I guess she's quite a big shot. I didn't know it at the time, but I've learned since, at the state level. I don't know how much she really knows about metro districts. I think she's the head of the real estate division. So she asked me a lot of questions about why I was applying. And I said, well, I want to represent some of the league's concerns, mostly about good governance, fair elections. And unfortunately, special district elections are not stellar and are actually quite a mess. There's I don't know how much Neil knows about them, but there's a lot of room for improvement. Also fair taxation and the fact that the government should serve the people and not special interest groups. And unfortunately, we're seeing an increase in the abuse by developers in this area, and taxpayers are the one, this is ending up on their back. And there were a couple of things passed at the legislature this year, which were very unhelpful for taxpayers. So I told her that I would be representing the league and, the taxpayer point of view and the citizens' point of view, because it's, I fear, going to be heavily developer dominated. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well,
And another thing I'll mention, we are scheduling, I was able to speak with Representative Parenti, Titone, and Tammy Story, as well as Senator Lisa Cutter a couple of months ago, and I got a commitment from them to attend a league presentation on metro districts. So we're in the process of setting that up right now. It hopefully will take place August 10th. Anyone else is welcome to sit in. So we're getting that on the calendar and hoping for good attendance, but who knows? I also have a commitment from them to disseminate the information about this training and presentation to their colleagues, because when you send it just to that email, when you send something to just the email, they get hundreds and thousands of emails, and who knows when they'll see it. So they have a way of disseminating the information internally so that hopefully they'll all know about it.
Fair, do you have a timeline as to when they'll let you know?
Well, she told me that now, so I guess I passed her interview because she said she was sending my information over to the Governor's Board of Commissions. Is that what it's called? And that I would probably be getting another call for another interview.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I think the person they had in mind for this position is someone from what they call MDEC, Metropolitan District Education Coalition, but it's a very pro-developer organization.
It's paid for by the developers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully you made a compelling argument for having the other side represented on this committee.
Yes, and what I found quite interesting is that she said, well, I don't know much about the League of Women Voters. And I was like, really? Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can do two jobs then if you
Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and look forward to
See what happens.
hearing a positive outcome on that. Neil, would you give us a short report on your attendance at the county clerk's meeting?
I'd be delighted to. So as someone who's been working with county clerks on auditing and most recently on auditing signature verification, I got to go to the meeting. And these are my heroes. These are people who just work together to try to make elections work well, and they don't get partisan. And in today's America, that is a breath of fresh air, and people attending from other states remarked on that. So there is ongoing discussion of the big report from a colleague of mine, Alex Halderman, on the vulnerabilities that he found in Georgia's version of the Dominion voting system. And they use an old version that Colorado had already gotten some fixes for. So they have decided not to fix those until 2025 in Georgia, which is partly because they have so many people voting on ballot marking devices. And that's actually not a very secure way to vote. And so they kind of dug a hole for themselves, and I wish they would kind of find a way to fix that. But I just wanted to clarify that these issues had been addressed probably a while ago in Colorado, and more of them addressed with the most recent version, which we are upgrading to. So that's—
So Neil, this was a national meeting rather than Colorado clerks?
It was a Colorado clerk meeting. There was actually the Gabe Sterling from Georgia, who is kind of the architect of their upgrades to their voting system, attended and gave a presentation and so on. And so this was just part of the conversation about, there's a lawsuit in Georgia that actually got to look in detail at the Georgia voting system and found a number of very serious flaws, and the National Organization for Cybersecurity agreed. And I mean, this would take a long time to go into in detail, and we've touched on it in the past, but you know, the topic was being discussed, and so it's both good the way that Colorado is handling things, which is to minimize the number of people voting via these machines, and to point out some of the reasons that Georgia is struggling, because everybody who votes in person votes on a separate voting machine, which you can't trust.
With no paper trail?
No, they have a paper trail, but people don't look at what's printed out. And there are a number of academic papers that point out how, you know, even if somebody notices a problem, which, since they only look at it for a couple seconds, according to observers, they're unlikely to, even if they notice a problem, what can you do? They could take the machine out of operation, but they're really going to say, oh, you probably hit the wrong button, and the voter can't prove which button they hit. So it's just, it's a very important thing to have those systems for voters with disabilities, but it's very important that we use methods where you really know that the voter verified their ballot because they filled it out by hand. So that's some of the complication.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
the ballot marking device produces paper after you've entered your stuff into the machine.
Right.
And then you are supposed to double check it, and that relies on you sort of skimming through usually and not finding something or not bothering with it because you're in a hurry. Or it's not quite the same as putting it, even
Right.
sometimes if you put an X, you might have to cross it out and move it to someplace else, but that's a less likely error than one with a machine.
And the system in Georgia prints out a ballot that looks nothing like what we fill out. It often will just say something like measure 2B, no. Now, how many people with 50 items on a ballot are going to say, oh yeah, I remember what 2B is, and I remember that I was very firmly a no, or whatever. So again, I could go into details or point you to details, but I want to respect our time. And
I just have one question.
please.
Was there any discussion about special district elections?
That is, there was some, trying to think if there was anything useful that came out of that. I mean, there wasn't a big presentation on it, but in the background, people were talking about it. I certainly heard clerks who understand that, you know, it's a very problematic thing. Clerks don't like special districts just because they add lots more work and so on. There was some pretty big pushback. I can look in my notes and try to see what was there. That's a great question.
Well, because it was interesting. Was it you, Christina, that talked to a clerk that told you this, that when the legislature passed the changes to put the special districts in May on odd years, nobody consulted the county clerks.
Actually, it was
And,
John O'Brien that found out that information.
It was who?
It was either John or Brian that found out
Oh,
that
okay.
information.
And they said, nobody ever asked us. We can't do it in May. And so I just wondered, so that's a major issue I'm going to bring up if I make it to this task force.
Yeah, I will look.
Talk to Michael Valdez of the Special Districts Association, the lobbyist.
Yeah, I know him.
Okay, I talked to him when there was an elections bill and it involved special districts, and
He's very pro-developer.
I'm guessing that, well, he gets paid by the Special Districts Association, so
Yeah, he
that
does.
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that they ran the change of date by that organization. I don't know if he was working there then.
That's generally who they ask, and
Right.
which has been a problem because they don't ask the taxpayers who have to live with these changes and situations.
Yeah.
So we're working on a timing of elections study for municipal elections and special districts. So my co-leader on that is Liz Black, and she's gone to a couple of the events that Jeff Co-League has done. So and so I don't know what to say, but that's what I know.
Yeah. So I will look through my notes and send that along. There are a couple other things that we touched on. In particular, we're still working on trying to make the way that risk limiting audits are done and are shared with the public more clearly understandable and transparent activity. And one of the aspects of that that's coming up as a new thing pretty new thing in Colorado is that both Broomfield and Boulder counties will be doing instant runoff voting elections. It's a ranked choice approach that produces a single winner. And the methods, it's much more complicated to tally that sort of an election. And in Alameda County recently, they declared the wrong winner because they configured the system to deal incorrectly according to state law, I guess, with certain ballots that were marked with a gap and then or
Same
what-
problem here that they had in Alameda, Neil, because there it was write-in votes and here we have declared write-ins, and so
Yeah.
my guess is it won't be.
Well, but there are a number of rules in terms of what you what happens if somebody skips a ranking and so on. It's very complicated to mark the ballot and it's complicated to tally it. And so we just want to make sure that the tally is accurate, and we want to make sure that we're able to audit the election. And so we're trying to work with the counties to make sure that that information is released. It has not been, there are complications in general with releasing the cast vote records before the end of the audit, which is a separate problem, but I just wanted to highlight that issue again.
All right, anything else, Neil?
That's what I got.
Thanks very much.
And thanks to Gaithia and to Karen and to all the folks that have worked with us on trying to take our stellar system and move up the next couple notches, because there really remains a lot to be done. And we're well placed to.
That's the big takeaway for this group, is that the problem is the minute anybody says something about this isn't totally absolutely secure, you set off panic buttons and some serious misrepresentation by people who want to believe that we can't there's no such thing as democracy or something. And so we need the rest of you and our white paper and any other ammunition we can get out there to the public to say we're working. Well, there are always things to improve. That doesn't mean that it isn't a very good, secure system and working to represent us.
Yep.
That's true. All right, just very briefly on that particular issue, I have met one of the subcommittees of this task force is the white paper, and I have met with two of the people that worked with me on that to do a little bit of brainstorming on how we might, moving forward, put a plan in place where we can reach out to local leagues and provide some education on our system so that people can have confidence that when the Secretary of State reports that so-and-so was the winner in Colorado for president, that we can be confident that in fact that was who the voters of Colorado voted for. So we're continuing to work on that, and hopefully we'll have something in place so that beginning the first of the year we can move forward and get the word out. Christina.
Well, in line with doing work on the special districts, Friday we did a training session on how to research for information on special districts. I was hoping I'd have a clip ready for it today, but Kath is out of town this week, and so she wasn't able to do anything for me this week. So hopefully I'll have it by next week and we'll have it published. Certainly on our website and possibly on the state's website. But I think the important part to understand is there are 2,900 special districts in Colorado. We know some of them are more egregious than others, and we need to focus on the ones that are more egregious. So we need researchers. And if you happen to know anyone that's interested in special districts, please send them my way. Because we need to start doing some research and trying to find out who the real problem ones are. We're hoping to identify board members. I mean, somebody can't possibly serve on 75 different special district boards, but yet we have people doing that. We have a situation coming up on Monday night where they're trying to tell the Lakewood City Clerk that the special district is trying to form. It's trying to tell the city clerk that, oh, the law requires that the organizational meeting be held by at the November election, which it does not. The organizational meeting date is determined by the court. What they're really after is trying to get the Tabor portion of their election on the November ballot. Now, why does an unformed district even need to have a de-Tabor statute at this point? We know why. But You know, they obviously
they
don't
can't
want to
have a
have any
ballot.
controls.
They can't have a ballot question if they're not a district yet.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. We should put that, I'm trying to put a letter together yet, Jeff, to see if we can get something published on that.
Because
So-
it's a court order, the court orders the election. It's a court-run election to
Mhm.
form the district. And then once the district's formed, they can go and act like a district. But until then, they can't pretend they're a district.
And they're trying to do it, I think, all in one swoop.
Well, good luck.
7 residents, I mean, or 7 board members, that's easy enough to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just one of the 75 districts that they're on.
Yes.
Well, I will say that I'm guessing it's probably an issue in other areas too, trying to find people who are willing to serve on boards that even understand what it is that they're supposed to do in that capacity and are willing to invest the time and educate themselves is really hard to do. So lots of these boards aren't even, don't even have their designated number of members because you can't find anybody who's willing to serve, which is part of the issue too, I'm sure. So Christina, I just, next month, we'll probably devote a good portion of this particular meeting to the video that Christina alluded to so that we can all be better informed about that. Deb.
Hi, we have a couple of special districts in our county that are very interesting. They're both water districts and I agree, trying to find the information on them is ridiculous. But one of the water districts happens to be run by a person who's now commissioner in our county and also president of this water district. And he and his wife are both on the board and have awarded themselves a contract for $36,000 a year. And this is a very small, it's a property tax 0.035, I think it is. So it's not a lot of money, but they're taking for that family about 30% of the money. And there's no accountability and no, it's really hard. People don't pay attention to those small special districts. So I will be happy to help you research. Let me know.
Thank you, Deb. Isn't there a law in Colorado that says you can't serve in more than one governmental entity? I'm like, no, I'm
Yes, I
misinformed
think
on that. Sorry about
You-
that.
You can't serve in 2 elective offices simultaneously, I believe.
Elected.
No.
You
Offices.
can't run for 2, you can't have 2 open
Can't run.
campaign,
Right.
candidate campaign committees for things like state legislature and governor or something like that. There are some rules that you can't, but special districts tend to be their own beast and it's worth researching that.
Yeah.
And Maud was shaking her head authoritatively, so you might know more, Maud.
No, I was just thinking of isn't it a Boulder city or county elected official who's also a state legislator?
Yeah, her term is up. So her council term is up this fall, so she will not be able to serve in both going forward.
Right, but she was she wasn't running
Yes.
simultaneously for 2 positions. But
She
she was
was
already
serving.
a local, she was
Right.
already a local official, elected official, and then ran for the legislature and won and was holding 2 seats.
Correct. And this also happened with Dominique Moreno and another person where they finished school board terms. And then while they were getting elected, while they were serving their first term in the legislature.
Right.
And I think a lot of the other issue is some of the special districts don't even have elections. They're like the water districts are appointed by the district court. And so the same board has been on the board for over 20 years. So it's the same people doing this.
Yeah, send me the name of that water district, would you?
I will send you both. There's actually 2 of them.
Yeah, because I'm going, there's something wrong there.
Well, yeah, and we're just starting to look at that. So, nobody's ever looked at it. And then to try to find the information it's really hard.
Yeah, I've got a friend in Park County that I'd love to send it to also. So, whatever pointers you can send would be great.
Oh, I can send a lot. We've done a lot of research. All right, thanks, guys.
Been a
Thank you.
productive meeting for Deb. Okay. I put a link, I put it in earlier, but we had lots of stuff in the chat. Kathy Wilson had sent me a link to the Brennan Center on the Freedom to Vote Act information. And so that link is there if you're interested in looking at that to correct some things at a national level. Is there anything else that anybody would like to share for the good of the cause before we adjourn? Well, thanks again.
Celeste, Karen, there's several hands up.
Oh, okay, Celeste.
I think I was actually even listed on the agenda under announcements.
Sorry.
So, additional updates. What I'd like to mention to people is that I'm very interested in charter committees, charter commissions, rewriting charters. And if you know of any cities or towns that are either wanting to become home rule and therefore writing a charter to be approved by the voters or rewriting their charter, please let me know. In Boulder and Broomfield, there are 3. Erie just finished writing their charter. Broomfield is rewriting a charter that's almost 50 years old. And Superior is going to be electing charter committee members this fall to write a charter so they can become home rule if the voters say, yes, we want to pursue this idea. So please keep your ears open and let me know.
Okay, well, you've all got Celeste's contact information. Maud?
This is actually more to Celeste, but also to the group. Celeste, I assume if there are folks on this who are interested in the timing of elections study, that you are happy to have more people helping.
Absolutely.
Okay, and also
I'll
that
put a note in the
study.
chat to everybody.
Okay, super. And that study can become a state study if you want, which means you get some state support and then the potential to become a state position that can be used at the state legislature.
Because it's only on municipal districts and special districts. I guess special districts are really in the state legislature.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that bill passed, and I think to move everything to May, and I think that changing it now, we get some pushback, but
okay,
I'm definitely willing to pursue it if there's a critical mass of people who are interested in doing it with me.
Yeah, first step obviously is a study. So, but at whatever level you want to do, and then we can also figure out a way if you want to have concurrence at the state level to do that.
Right.
Okay.
All right, Gathia.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention we've got a lot of good stuff in chat and want to be sure everybody knew how to save chat. I put a little note in the chat, but there's 3 little dots at the bottom of that message and chat section, and you can click on that and save all of that information.
A lot of the chat seems to have disappeared in my screen.
You left, Jeff, that's why. And then when you leave, you lose the chat.
Oh,
That's
is that it? Okay, yeah.
Click at the bottom.
I had
Jeff,
a
I've been saving all along though, so I can send it to you.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I had a 1 o'clock meeting I had to go to and they canceled it and I didn't know it, so I came back.
Thank you for coming back.
I didn't know I would lose the chat.
Christina, if you send the chat to Jane and ask her to send it to everyone who registered for the meeting,
Okay.
I think she would be willing to do that. Maybe CC Beth when you do
Okay.
it. But
We could probably stop the recording now, or maybe Gaithia still has her hand up, maybe not.
Oh, no, I didn't get it down. Sorry.
Okay. Is there anything else? All right, I have copied down all of the contact information, and I will get that in a Google Doc and send that to you so that you all have it. Thank you again for coming. Our next meeting is, hang on, just let me pull it up on my calendar. Oops. Our next meeting is August the 17th. It will be at noon again. And be sure to mark it on your calendar, especially if you're interested in special districts, because Christina will be taking the lead on that meeting.
So we only got the teaser to the video today. We didn't get the actual video. Got it.
Yeah, today was just the teaser, so you have to come back.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you're enjoying your summer, even though it may be hot where you live, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Great work. Thank you.
Bye-bye.